This is worldwidedx.com. Today we're looking at the new Retevis MB2 CB. Retevis contacted me and asked me if I would like to take a look at this radio, review it, give my thoughts. Sure, of course, why not? That's what I love doing, so here we are. So this is a small form factor AM and FM CB radio. For anybody that's interested in the CB radio history, the FCC in the United States recently authorized the use of FM on the CB band. In Europe, they've had that capability for a while and in other locations, but we've only had that for a few years here in the United States. This radio comes equipped with both AM and FM. Small form factor, kind of like the Uniden PC 520, similar radios like that, fit in just about any location that you want to put it in. Comes with a bracket. You can see I've got a bracket attached here, tilted up on the use of the desk. I also put this in my car, just put it on the dash to try it out. It comes with this standard mic bracket, which I attach here. It comes with all the screws and stuff that if you want to mount it in a vehicle or something like that. And of course, the microphone. We're going to talk a little bit more about the microphone. It's a little bit unique, but that's okay. But I'm going to kind of run through the basic features of this radio pretty quickly. Most of this stuff is available on their website, so we're not going to spend a ton of time doing that. Under here is a lock button, which you can press, which prevents you from accidentally changing the channel or hitting any of the rest of the buttons. The radio comes equipped with Vox, which is an interesting choice, or interesting feature, I should say. So if you have that, you can have this microphone, attached up close to you somehow, or just pick it up and without keying and speak into it. And of course, it will trigger the push to talk and mic. The emergency button is kind of a throwback to the old days of CB when we used to, in the United States, we used to have channel 9 for emergency, and you toggle back and forth between that and channel 19, of course, where a lot of the road traffic, truckers and stuff were. So it still does that. There's not really any emergency traffic monitoring anymore on channel 9, but if you're on another frequency, another channel somewhere, let's just like randomly go to another channel here. And if you hit this, you can jump to channel 19 pretty quickly. So that's kind of useful. You've got the standard squelch control. I've got the radio plugged into a dummy load right now for testing purposes. These LEDs, we'll kind of go through here in a minute. AM, FM to switch between, obviously, AM and FM, up, down to change channels. Automatic squelch. So what this does is if you hit the automatic squelch button, the radio finds the right level to squelch all the background noise. And then when it detects an incoming signal, it breaks the squelch open for you. So you don't have to listen to hash all the time. I tested this out and it actually works pretty well. I was surprised. I didn't have very high expectations for this, but it really does work as advertised. The radio has a bunch of different Roger beep functions. So I've got a mic placed here close to the radio so you can hear what they sound like, but we'll go through some of these. So Roger beep is, when you key the mic and unkey it on the unkey, it makes a little beep so the stations know that you're free to transmit. So that's pretty neat. All right, let's talk about these LEDs. You see the LED for lock is lit up, would be lit up if that was turned on. Vox, if that's turned on. Roger beep, if one of the Roger beeps is enabled. Automatic squelch, if that's turned on. What you see here is this LED next to L for low is turned on. Low and high are these two LEDs. These do not function for the US shipping model from the factory. They're off normally. There is a modification, which I linked to in the description below, where we talk about how to change the power output of this radio. And what that does is it changes the power output on both AM and FM. And we'll do a little bit of a test here briefly so you can see the effect of that in this video. But again, the instructions on how to do this modification are in another video. For AM, you're going to want to leave the power on the low setting, and it's going to key up at about 4 watts, 3.5, 4 watts average, and then swing somewhere to, under modulation between 12 and 16 watts, depending on conditions. On the low power, the FM mode also is 4 watts. So they've done this to comply with FCC regulations on power output. On high setting, the radio will key about 8 watts on AM, and then swing to the same 12 to 16 watts. No, that's not optimal. That carrier to peak ratio is it sounds weird. I actually did that and tested it on the air. And as you would expect, if you're an experienced AM radio operator, 2-to-1 carrier to peak ratio sounds kind of muffled. It doesn't sound full body audio. So don't do that. But on FM, the high power delivers 16 to 18 watts of power on FM, and it's clean and it's clear and it sounds good. So if you want to do the modification and run it on FM, that's actually pretty cool. There is an optional mag mount CB antenna for this radio. It has a screw-on SO239 connector. The antenna is a PL259, obviously. It's, as you can see, a center-loaded antenna. It's about 45 inches tall. It reminds me an awful lot of the old Radio Shack mag mount antennas. It's got RG59 coax. It doesn't have a brand name on it. I took this out of the package, screwed it together with a set screw, plopped it on the car, as you can see here, and swept it with my analyzer, my Rig Expert analyzer, and it more than adequately covers low SWR on the entire CB band. So that was just plug and play, no muss, no fuss. I didn't have to do any trimming or anything like that. So that's good. I've zoomed in a little bit on the meter here and reposition the radio so I can show you how the radio power output performs. So this is a Bird 43P meter. You can't see it here, but this is the P model, so it's peak reading powered meter. I've got a 50 watt, 30 to 30 megahertz slug in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to key the radio, and we're going to read this bottom scale. It goes 0, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, because that's the slug we have in here. So I key the radio. So just about 4.5 watts. You can see it's picking up a little bit of ambient noise there. If I turn off the peak mode, about the same. Remember the tolerance on these slugs is plus or minus 20%. All right, so we're on low power on AM, and I'm going to whistle into the mic so you can see the modulation. Test 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4. So you get up to 22 watts there at peak. That's actually better than earlier tests that I did. So somewhere between 18 to 20 watts is what it will modulate when you do it on the low power, have it set on the low power. Now I'm going to change the power setting by holding the AM FM button. See, now the high LED is on. Obviously, I've already done the mod on this radio. Keys up about 9 watts. 4. Test. So about 10 to 22 watts. It's roughly 2-to-1 modulation, maybe a little over. So that's why I recommend, if you're going to do this mod, leave it on the low power. And incidentally, this modulation is the same as what it produces the low power modulation is the same as what it produces stock from the factory. So now we're going to switch it to FM. Same what you would expect on FM. Somewhere between 4 and 5 watts. And now we're going to switch it to high power. The high power LED is lit. About 12 watts. I'm sorry, 22 watts or so. So one thing I've noticed is the power output that you see from this radio is temperature sensitive. I've performed these same tests over the last week or so, more than a week, and depending on the ambient temperature, it's a little higher, a little lower. That's fairly typical in a CB radio. We're not talking about more expensive radio that's has a Taxco temperature control module and all that. So fairly normal. This radio has a pretty big heat sink on the back. You kind of see it there to help dissipate the heat of the transistor itself, which is a good thing. But I would say you can expect to see somewhere between 16 to 20 watts under typical ambient temperature. And sometimes, just depending on the way things are, you might see a little bit over 20 watts. Today's video is the first time I've seen it go over 20 watts. All right, a couple other things. I want to talk about this mic for a second. This is an entry-level radio. The price point is very inexpensive. You can buy just the radio by itself or with the antenna. With the antenna, it's going to set you back like $100. Without the antenna, I think it's like 50, 60 bucks, something like that on Amazon. You can check the links in the description. This mic leaves a little bit to be desired, the mic and the mic gain itself. So this, let me take this off here, is a 5-pin DIN connector for a mic, which is a little weird in today's CB world, but it's okay. It works fine. It's strong. Snaps in there. It's not going to come out accidentally. Retevis tells me that this is an electret condenser mic. And I verified that because there is 5 volts on the audio pin, 5 volts DC on the audio pin. This mic, though, you've got to get right up. I mean, you got to put your lips right up on this mic for you to be heard. If you're this far away, there's not much audio punch at all, not much audio output. You got to put your lips right on this thing. I've got a demonstration here we'll cut into that does a little test. Now, the audio is clear. It's very easy to understand, easy to be heard, but it is not a loud mic, and the radio doesn't have a lot of mic gain. One of the things I've mentioned that probably should be improved is to see if they can add additional gain to this mic circuit, even if it's fixed and if they never add a mic gain control like a high-low or a pot, whatever, just changing out some of the values that they're using in the circuit board to get more volume out of the mic circuit. The mic gain circuit would be helpful. It works fine. It's an entry level radio. You could rewire a different mic on this and do a whole lot better, but then you're getting into a whole nother price point. So here is the sample of the audio test. Now you'll see that what I did is I put the radio in the car, and I had my wife drive it and give me a little audio test, and I put the microphone right by the speaker. The radio I'm using to receive and talk on has a little itty-bitty speaker in it, and it's really intended to be used by headphones, but it works pretty good for the demonstration, just so you can kind of hear what this radio sounds like. Okay, let's hear what that radio sounds like. The Retevis MB2 CB on AM.
This is a test of the Retevis MB2 CB on AM.
All right, let's hear a test of the Retevis MB2 CB on FM.
This is a test of the Retevis MB2 CB on FM.
A couple of last thoughts about the radio. It does have the ability to change the frequencies associated with the channels depending on what region of the world you're in. Different regions have different band plans for the channels. There's a jumper in here. I have a link to the schematic and instructions that shows you how to do that in the description, so take a look at that. Also, I have a lot more detailed thoughts about the radio in general on the webpage. Again, in the links below. Click on the links, take a look at some of the other pictures and some of the comments that others are posting in response to my review about this radio, and make a judgment call for yourself. Overall, this radio is pretty nice for a small, compact plug-and-play radio at the price point. I actually really don't have any complaints about this radio, other than just I wish the mic had more punch. Or a mic gain controller or something like that. Again, keep in mind what I said before. If you decide to do the mod, again, links in the description. Leave it on low for AM. That's your friend. If you want to use it on high, on FM, that sounds fine. Consider the legalities of doing such a thing, depending on what part of the world you're in. Some countries, that's perfectly fine to run at those power levels. In other countries like the US, it may not be. I'm not here to tell you what to do. Just provide the information so you can make your own decisions. This has been WorldwideDX.com reviewing the Retevis MB2 CB. I hope to hear you on the air one day.